Slotnick is on his way, but he's just in the hallway, so we'll get started. Take it away, Annie.
All right, I have myself, Annie Cathy, Andrew Chorney, Jason Emery, Kelly McGuire, Kyla Lennertz, Melissa Fisher, Cindy Kennedy, Violet Plummer, Randy Arnold, Kim Bauer, and MCAT. And it looks like in 206, we have Allison France. Is that John Hart in the background?
Good eye.
Hey, nice catch.
And Commissioner of Bureaus, Slotnick and Strohmeyer. Did I miss anybody out there? All right, you guys can take it away.
Thanks. Any public comment on items not on the agenda? Okay, we have 3 items on the consent agenda. Does anything need to be pulled out and discussed separately? Any comment on the consent agenda?
I would move that we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
All I can say is it was a great idea to have a consent agenda.
Thank you, Dave.
Say it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And Ann Hughes just joined us. Action items. Okay, first one looks like Cindy Kennedy.
Good morning, commissioners. Can everybody hear me?
Well,
Nice
thanks.
to see you.
Great. Good to see you too. I'm with my Princess Leia pink headphones.
Yeah,
Um,
nice.
so-
They are Princess Leia like.
Oh. So this morning I'm requesting that the board approve the chair to sign the Cdbg contract between the Montana Department of Commerce and Missoula County for the phase 2 of the Buena Vista Wastewater System Improvement Project. This contract is in the amount of $450,000. The project is funded by 4 different grants, aside from Cdbg, also DNRC, Department of Natural Resource and Conservation, ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act, and WRDA, Water Resource Development Act funding. And the total project budget is $2,295,000. So due to lots of delays, supply chain issues, labor shortages, et cetera, we are not certain this project will follow the construction schedule as planned. We have not bid the project yet due to delays in DEQ's approval. So we are exploring our options with the funders to determine how best to proceed, since it is so late in the construction season to bid a project.
Oh,
And honestly, oh, go ahead.
we're just
Go ahead.
moaning and
Groaning,
groaning.
yeah. What does this mean for the folks who depend on this water system?
It's a wastewater system. They're already connected to the city through their lift station. So phase 1 was setting up their lift station. Phase 2 is connecting individual lots to the lift station. So they have a functioning system right now. This is just upgrading an old antiquated system and getting the city to take on everything, not just the lift station. So it's not going to be a major issue if it gets delayed, other than they would really like this to be done, and we would too. So, we're just kind of hoping that the funders, we've got a couple of potential options, either delaying bidding until next spring or bidding the project now, but giving contractors lots of flexibility. And that's just, the funders are going to have to make that call because there's different stipulations around the funding. So we'll we're actually meeting this afternoon to kind of sort that.
Good.
Are there any other?
That there's an extension.
Yeah. Like flexibility.
Yeah.
All right. I would move that the board approve the chair to sign the contract.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Thanks.
Excellent.
Thank you so much, Cindy. Kelly McGuire with Border Crime Control.
Hi, everybody. These are application documents for the Montana Board of Crime Control Violence Against Women Act grant. This is a grant that we apply for every year. It's a pretty reliable source of funding for us. And this particular grant funds Erin Schroeder's time, or part of it, and she's the Just Response Coordinator. So her time goes to coordinating just response. It's things like helping to coordinate the domestic violence task force, the human trafficking task force, child abuse and sexual assault case review, those sorts of activities, and making sure that criminal justice professionals have access to training. The grant application is for about $54,000, but we anticipate that we won't receive that much just because the pot of money from this source has been sort of shrinking every year. So I'd be happy to take any questions about the grant or what it funds.
How competitive is this?
It's not very competitive. It's the funds have been funding crime victim advocate programs across the state for a long time, and so they're very reliable for those programs that have been receiving funding. In recent years, that pot of money on the federal level increased, and they started taking applications from other folks like Big Brothers Big Sisters, and that because the pot of funds has now decreased, I think they are not looking to fund nonprofits that aren't specifically crime victim advocacy or coordinated criminal justice system response teams. So it's a pretty sure bet that we'll get it, just unsure on the level of funding we'll receive.
But just to be clear, the shrinking size of the pot, is that, you said the federal amount of money got bigger, but what happened there that it's smaller for us?
Yeah, sorry. It's now shrunk on the federal level. And that, my understanding is, Chantel is a much better source of information, but my understanding is that under the Obama administration, there were a lot more prosecution of white collar crimes, and those fines from those crimes sort of go towards this bucket of money for the Violence Against Women Act and Victims of Crime Act. And so under the Trump administration, those prosecutions decreased, which meant that we weren't getting as much money flowing into that pot at the federal level, and then it gets passed down to the state level and then comes to us. So it's not state dollars, even though it's from the Montana Board of Crime Control, it's federal dollars. So with our current administration, I don't really know what the outlook is on that pot of money and whether they're predicting it will grow or shrink. But at the current point in time, we just haven't been receiving as much support from that grant.
Thanks for the explanation.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Well, I would move that we authorize the chair to sign the application.
I second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With,
He's right here.
oh, he's in person.
He's in the waiting room.
We have
Oh,
a
no, there he is right there.
He was here just a moment ago.
There he is.
So
I might be in the waiting room, yeah. I was hustling to get back to my office. I should have stayed there. So yeah, today just bringing the MOA for the upcoming River Ambassador season. And just to refresh a little bit, we last year had a pilot effort that brought together the city, the county, Fish, Wildlife and Parks, and the Clark Fork Coalition to kick off an inaugural effort that we are calling the Missoula Valley River Ambassador Project. We had 4 river ambassadors last year in a really successful effort in trying to alleviate some of the river recreation issues that a lot of folks have been seeing, mostly around kind of the urban area of Missoula. So that was a huge benefit. And we had heard from some of the law enforcement community working around river recreation that having this non-enforcement boots on the ground presence with an educational message, kind of here's where to go, information for the public was really necessary, and saw some huge benefit from all of that. So this is basically the similar version of the MOA we used last year. This will continue us on through this upcoming season. We've been able to get a bit more of a commitment from the city and their contribution financially to this, as well as Fish, Wildlife and Parks. And in the future might even be able to incorporate some of the funding that the Forest Service might have. So this continues to grow in terms of the collaboration and the contribution, and our intent is to continue that on into the future. So I'll take any questions that you might have. I know, Josh, this is one of those projects that's been near and dear to you. So if you have any thoughts on this, feel free.
My only thoughts are I'm super proud that this is happening and really thankful for your efforts last year, really trying to figure out how to solve this as a puzzle, as how we could make it happen organizationally with all these different partners. And I'm really excited to hear that our partners from last year have stepped up their contributions, which is really what part of the hope was. And nothing breeds engagement like success. And we experience success, and our partners want to be more deeply involved. Thrilled to see that.
Maybe you just said this and I missed it. Do we have more ambassadors this year?
Same amount of ambassadors,
Got it.
but the contributions from the city and
yeah.
FWP are a little bigger, and it looks like Forest Services.
Great.
Do we know right now what those contribution levels will be specifically?
We do, yeah, and that's part of the MOU as well. So we've had to bump up the cost of the overall program this year for just to accommodate some inflationary increases. So if I remember correctly, I think we're right around a total of approximately 50 to 60. We have 10 coming from Fish, Wildlife and Parks, 10,000. We have 10 to 15,000 from the city, and then the remainder of that would be from the county. Although I know that again, there's that piece from the Forest Service that we're waiting on. That could be a $5,000 amount, and then we're also receiving some in-kind support from the Clark Fork Coalition. And as a reminder, they're the ones who are doing most of the kind of coordination of this. They will be the ones who are overseeing the river ambassadors and helping coordinate all the partners in the effort. So that puts the county right in the ballpark of 25 to 30, depending on where those sources all come in. And that's a conservative estimate. If we see some increased support along the way, then that number will of course go down. And then the one other thing I wanted to mention too, they're not a part of the MOA, but have been a part of regular conversations. And that's discussions with Mountain Line and also ASUM Transportation. And they do have plans this year to continue to provide some of the public transit options to river recreation. And that's been a really cool partnership that started last year. And we'll continue that as well. So that alleviates some of those issues with congestion and parking and transportation, et cetera. So while they're not a part of this MOA for the river ambassadors, it's really a critical piece to that overall effort. And we're pretty excited about the work that they're doing.
Yeah, it's really great.
When do they get hired?
Their advertisements are out now as they recruit, and then we'll be looking into the first part of June for kind of an orientation. So in between now and then, Clark Fork Coalition hopes to have those positions filled, and then we'll get them on board, run through kind of a week-long orientation and get them up to speed, and then they'll be out and about for the season.
Great. Hopefully it won't be like triple digits in early June like it was last year.
Yeah,
Awesome. I'm sorry.
I can't remember whose turn it is.
I think this is a good one for you.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. All right, I'd move that we request the board approve the MOA with Missoula County, City of Missoula, Missoula Fish, Wildlife and Parks, and the Clark Fork Coalition for the Missoula Valley River Recreation Ambassador Project.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Thanks,
Kyle?
everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks, Chet.
Oops, Kyla, you're muted. Oh, no, no longer.
Sorry, I had a little glitch there. Everybody froze. So this is for the library board. Got my notes up here. We had a vacancy as of April 7th, 2022. We had 2 new applicants, Megan Moore and Molly Galusha. So the request is to appoint one of these as an alternate member, filling the remainder of the term, which is just around the corner, June 30th of this year, and then be reappointed to a new 5-year term, which would go through June 30th of 2027 to the library board.
I would move that we appoint Megan Moore.
I will second that.
Any further discussion? Okay, none. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Oh, you have the next one too.
I do. The next one is for the Swan Valley Community Council. We had 2 vacancies. We had a resignation in late 2021 that's remained vacant, and then we have 1 vacancy as of June 1st of this year due to the resignation of the current member, Lacey McNutt. We had 2 new applicants, Marcia Tapp and Grace Saloti. So there would be 2 motions, motion to appoint someone to fill the remainder of the vacant term through May 31st, 2023, and then a request to appoint someone to a new 3-year term, which would start in June of this year and end May 31st of 2025.
I don't have any.
Yeah,
I guess we've got 2 applicants, 2 vacancies. We just
We-
need
yeah.
to decide which one goes.
does which. So
That
I-
is correct.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, why don't we have Grace fill out the existing term and Marcia do the 3-year term?
I was gonna say that because Marcia has experience on the board and Grace would be a new board member.
Yep.
That
Good
makes sense
enough.
to me.
I'll second that.
Well, thank you, sir.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Whoops, well, Kylie, did you say that we need to have 2 different motions?
You can do it as one.
Okay, we did it.
We did. Thank you for your graciousness there.
And Florence Carlton.
So this one is the Florence Carlton Cemetery. As you know, we've had a vacancy on this board since fall of 2021. We had 2 new applicants, Pat Kanan and Shauna Dishman-Hoffbauer. This would be to fill the remainder of the vacant term, which is through December 31st of this year, 2022.
Which one was the one that they
They made it sound like
A
Shauna.
recommendation or from the board. Do we,
you remember?
I believe that there was, it was Pat Kanan, if I'm not mistaken, unless they had other conversation.
Well, we met with them recently and
yes, someone took
just a
notes.
second.
I was paying a bill.
Which was really good. I remember them making jokes. Remember
We're useless, geez.
Dave's notes.
Thankfully, Strohmeyer has notes. But okay, and so, I'm sorry, there was discussion about creating an alternate, but they have to get through this first to get the bylaws
All right, we got to get them all modernized.
to modernize the bylaws, and then they can have
Have an
alternates.
alternate.
Yes, we will work with the board to get an alternate seat if that's what they're seeking with their new bylaws.
Yeah, we should tell them we want them to have an alternate in the new bylaws. And that whoever isn't chosen here can be set up to be the alternate.
I lost my notes.
So Kyla, can you
Yeah, what do you
can you check to see, I mean, the board did do some recruiting, or they felt that that's what had been asked of them?
And
Correct.
one of these folks was the person who they had their eye on, and I can't remember.
Do you,
which
and
one.
you remember, Kyla?
Is there
Neither
any,
of these 2 was their recruit.
Well, although I think I got the distinct impression that they had an opinion about the 2 that have thrown their hat. in the ring.
can we just put this on pause and go get our
Yeah.
ducks in a row and then come back to
Can we
this?
do that?
We can certainly do that. Yep, we can postpone.
That would be good.
Okay.
After we met with them,
It would be embarrassing if
yeah.
what we're doing right now.
We can
So,
call the porches.
Certainly.
okay. So next week, can we put this on?
Sure. Unless, here's an option. Do we still have a United Way thing coming up, presentation here?
Yes, shortly.
Well, perhaps while we were dealing with that, Kyla could call.
Oh, excellent. Would you mind
well
calling
done.
one of the porches?
I
And
can
ask
certainly do that.
what their opinion is. Thank
I
you.
certainly
Yeah,
can.
we might be able to finish this morning.
Before anyone
Thanks,
dies
Kyla.
on the cemetery. Okay.
And Kyla has one more.
Yes, one more final board appointment before you. We had a regular member, Susan Favreau, resign from the Elections Advisory Committee effective April 26, 2022, leaving that partial seat vacant. Alternate Kathy Nygaard has submitted her letter of interest. She's in good standing with the board, and Bradley Steeman has also submitted a letter saying he is in support of her moving from an alternate to a regular member seat. So the motion would be to request the board to appoint Kathy Nygaard as a regular member to fill the remainder of the vacant seat through January 31st, 2023 to the Elections Advisory Committee.
So moved.
All right, seconded.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
All
Aye.
right.
Thank you.
You.
Correspondence. Discussion items. Do we have,
Here they come.
ah,
Is this gonna take them? I don't think so, but 15 minutes. I was hoping. Yeah, we'll cap it at 15. So that's that.
I just wanted the grand finale of the cemetery board decision.
No, I would really, John, I
Just so you think of there.
would really like to talk to you. I know you do, John, when I was this morning doing my rehab, this guy came up to me and said, are you training for this cage fight this afternoon?
always training, Josh.
Yeah.
Hi, public servants.
Hey, how are you? Nice
Is
to see you.
today the day?
Tomorrow.
You could take
Oh.
Friday the 13th.
I was able to announce that to my.
Oh, good. I hope it's on public record.
It is. We are being recorded.
And I was actually born on Friday the 13th, so there's a joke in there somewhere.
Thank you guys so much for coming. So we have Grace Decker and Susan Hay Patrick have joined us.
Yes, we did not, we took the in-person option and.
Thank you.
We're glad that you
Hope
did.
that's okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
I like that better.
Thank you. And then the
Thanks.
camera is that way, and those are the folks here.
But it's okay if you look at us.
But you can look at
Yeah.
us.
Okay. Just
Okay.
checking out, seeing who's there.
Okay. So,
MCAT, Kim Bauer.
MCAT. Do we
Yeah.
have, is Martin
Answering.
on?
Oh, Jamar, yeah, okay.
and as a reminder, these are recorded and put on YouTube.
I think we're at like,
Lifelong aspiration.
I think we're at like 1.6 million followers. right?
Yeah. Okay.
Well, thanks for taking a few minutes in this meeting to hear about this
Of course.
proposal or this request that we have to bring to you. As you know, as many of you on the call also know, we have been working at United Way of Missoula County and 0 to 5 Missoula County for 2.5, 3 years, and then much longer in community collaborations to try to find some new, creative, innovative solutions to the shortage and pain point around cost of childcare in the community. And, you know, all of you, we've had many conversations about that need. We have an opportunity before us to try to do something that we think has great promise for supporting some new childcare businesses in a pilot project, and then potentially more childcare businesses out across the community as that pilot project proves its worth, because we'll be able to expand this new way of helping childcare businesses have a better bottom line. So the materials that you have before you, and I can give you these electronically if they need to go out as part of your minutes from the meeting. I apologize for not bringing more or having that ahead of time. The vision for this project is to create an entity that can support childcare businesses with business shared services, CMSS essentially, and licenses for operating those services that would help those childcare businesses be more stable and operate with a better bottom line.
Grace, what is CMSS now?
It is centrally managed shared services. And
SSTs.
yeah.
Most of that.
Yeah, and so those are things like things that would be front facing, like managing enrollment processes and wait lists, and some of that public interface for a childcare business that normally a director is doing like on their own after they're finished
Evenings and
caring for
weekends,
children
yeah.
for the day, right? It's also some back office procedures like ordering of supplies, payroll, accounting, the management functions of childcare. And around the country, shared services has been used as a way of helping childcare businesses be more efficient and more effective in their operations. The hard thing about it is that childcare in Montana is not very networked. We don't have networks of childcare businesses that come together to do that. And so an entity that can perform that function needs to have a funding stream to support its operation. And that's really the idea that we're bringing to you for an entity that can do that for childcare businesses, first in a pilot project and then longer term for more businesses. We're also asking for a braided funding stream to support the staff of that project, but the actual licenses and operation would be supported by business memberships in this network. Larger employers definitely know the pain that their workforce is feeling around actually finding childcare right now. And so what we're proposing is that memberships in this network for organizations, public too, but also definitely private companies, healthcare in particular, education organizations that really need their workforce to be there all the time. Memberships in those in this network will create a faster moving wait list that those staff can access. So when they're looking for childcare, we can help them find it and secure a spot more quickly through that membership. So membership fees are going to help fund the operation of this entity. And we hope that a braided public and nonprofit source of funding will support the staff. Now, all of this would operate in a pilot at Cold Spring School, which is currently unoccupied and which we propose to apply to the state for a DPHHS innovation grant that would help fund the renovation to make it childcare ready. If that grant is successful, we could see 6 to 10 new childcare businesses stand up in that facility. They would serve as the pilot group for this new
Shared
entity
services model.
that we're calling Missoula Childcare Advantage. How that lands, we're liking it. Yeah, we think that it's an advantage for the businesses that are in the pilot. We think it's an advantage for the community because we now have this sort of middle place to be supporting businesses differently and giving employers that benefit they can offer their employees. If they are a member, their employees get an advantage in accessing childcare.
Do you think will this work out to be less expensive for families? Is that the hope?
So we have a concept for that, which is that the lowest income workers in Missoula can access the child care scholarship that's called the Best Beginning Scholarship. We are working through the numbers, but we'd like to see the Best Beginning Scholarship act as a membership. So that if you are a Best Beginning Scholarship recipient, you would have the same kind of access to that wait list that someone who was a corporate member. We're working through the numbers on that, and we need to figure out for sure if that will work. We know that cost is sort of the third piece of the equation right now because childcare is so scarce. It's hard for folks to find it at any cost. And so this is a really complex problem, and that we're attacking as many of the sort of facets of it at once as we can with this new innovation.
Another piece of the innovation would be reduced rent.
Yes, in the pilot.
In the pilot. So working with MCPS on that possibility, likelihood.
So that cost savings would filter down to
yes, absolutely.
tenant businesses.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Great.
And we envision a variety of childcare. Do you want to talk about that? The different.
Yeah, if we receive the innovation grant and if this project is funded to go forward, we'd want those 6 to 10 businesses in the pilot to reflect different kinds of need that families have for childcare right now. Some families, the highest need really is for infant and toddler care. And so we would prioritize programs that were serving infants and toddlers. In the childcare industry, that's usually mixed age programs that are able to do that. So smaller mixed age programs. We also would prioritize a high quality drop-in care facility as part of this pilot. And that's because we recognize that more and more workers need non-standard hours, so hours outside of the regular workday, and also need variable hours. So many workers who are in like hybrid work situations where sometimes you have to go have a meeting in person, but often you're home. You don't need childcare 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, but you need it when you need it. And so high quality drop-in care that members could also be accessing would be a part of that sort of constellation of services. And then also thinking about how we can support out of school care for days when school is not in session, including for summer, which we're hearing this year more than ever is at a high demand for folks. I actually just heard from a summer care provider yesterday who told me that his program is full with an incredibly long wait list right now, record breaking, and that he started getting calls for enrollment in January, which he said is the earliest ever. He's running more programs than ever, and his wait list is longer than ever for this particular summer.
Another aspect of this would be improving the wages of childcare workers, which because this cost savings would allow the childcare businesses to pay better wages, reduce turnover, and result in better quality care.
Mhm. That's the goal.
Grace, something you and I talked a little bit about. We not infrequently get hammered by folks across the county who perceive that tax dollars in Missoula County flow like a big funnel into the Missoula Valley. This facility
Oh,
is
it's
in
only-
the heart of Missoula. Are there any ways in which the shared services could help support folks who are doing childcare in outlying areas?
That is our goal.
Yeah, the goal absolutely is to prove proof of concept in the pilot, but then to prioritize serving the highest needs areas for childcare providers. And it's really the outlying areas where providers are the most isolated, the least able to take advantage of these kinds of things. I mean, Sealy Lake, for example, has
Yeah.
one licensed childcare facility, one with 6 slots, 6 entire slots for Sealy Lake as a community. That is what exists currently for licensed childcare in Sealy Lake. What we're hoping is that the model that we are demonstrating with a public-private partnership around the facility itself is something that could be replicable, so that in other communities where if there's an opportunity around a facility, the entire model could be replicated. But the shared services and memberships are expandable whether or not there's a new facility involved. So an existing childcare provider in another area could, we hope, participate in the Missoula Child Care Advantage
To be able to serve,
network.
yeah.
Yes. So the network becomes a virtual network that
So this
providers anywhere can.
CMSS isn't entirely physical.
Exactly, yes. In fact, most of what is offered through the shared services doesn't require that you're co-located.
Wow.
Because these
Payroll,
providers.
ordering, whatever. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
those things can all be done virtually, and actually with tech solutions that we would be licensing that have already been built by companies, maybe in Montana and maybe
Yeah,
around
these
the,
exist.
around the
Great.
nation. Yeah, but the licenses would be too expensive for like 1 or 2 or 3 childcare providers to go in on together. Plus, by the time you've worked a whole day in childcare, are you doing, you're not setting that up. So we're trying to set up like the benefits of being in a bigger network for businesses that, historically have been really isolated.
Thanks.
Yeah. So the ask really that we came to this meeting to discuss with you is on the second sheet. We have this kind of one pager that's sort of the rah-rah about the
Pitch piece.
plan, the pitch piece about the plan. But really for this to work, what we know about shared services around the nation is that the shared services entity requires an enduring commitment of some kind to exist, because the childcare businesses that are part of the network, we're going to save them money. They're going to be more stable, but they can't also now fund the entity that makes that possible to exist, right? So they're like dues or fees. We can't look at them as the source of
Right.
funding Missoula Child Care Advantage to exist.
This is, I think I said, we had this, I'm gonna say stuff I think I said to you
That's
before
okay.
about childcare being held up as a market failure,
Yeah,
and that there needs to be some type of intervention. When I say market failure, I mean the money generated from sale of the service doesn't adequately cover the cost of the production of the service. So we end up in a situation with childcare where
Yep.
people pay a lot of money and then the folks who do the work actually don't get very much.
that's right.
So to tilt that equation a little bit requires some type of intervention.
Mhm.
It seems like we have public entities and nonprofits involved playing that role of intervener.
Yeah, and I think it's important too that the relationship between the family and the provider to the family is still going to feel front and center.
Yeah.
A lot of this
This is
support that
back.
we're talking about,
Yeah.
is on the back end. It's about operation, but it's not about that really personal relationship that people really value in their
No,
childcare
this is-
situations, right?
This sounds like coordinating those shared services.
Yeah, which does require, like I say,
A
that
person.
there's that intervention of resources from public and nonprofit. And so we're looking at, the idea of braiding funding together from the county, from the city, and from the United Way of Missoula County to help that entity exist and offer this support to this, as you say, failing, not through any fault of their own,
Well, it's
failing
nationwide.
structure. Yeah. Yeah.
Grace often says we can't ask childcare to fix childcare. I mean,
Yeah.
childcare is too fragile an industry
Yeah.
to fix itself. And much as we collaborate on other initiatives with the city and county, we see this as something that's too heavy a lift for any single
Sure.
sector alone. And that's why we're coming
Yeah.
to the public
So
sector.
you mentioned membership. Do we get to be members?
We would love to, I mean, I think that the county has a tremendous number of employees who need childcare
Yeah.
too. Because this is a pilot, we're being cautious about how many members can be part of this pilot, but our goal would be that any employer that wanted to be members would be part of being members. We want to just tease out supporting this entity to exist from the membership piece, which is more of like that HR decision. So, you know, as a benefit to staff who are county employees, we'd love to have a conversation about coming in as members. We also would be interested in exploring the possibility of co-funding a position that would support this model to exist.
In part, we're afraid of overpromising, you know, that if everybody's a member, like.
It's only 100.
It's only 100
spots to begin with.
It's replicable.
And
It's
expandable.
very, and expandable, but at the beginning, I think just being cautious about not overpromising
Okay.
and distinguishing between sustaining funders like United Way and the city, hopefully the city and county, and a membership model for others.
So would this position that we're talking about here, an employee of United Way? Is that what we're?
At least to start, we really feel like the partnerships that United Way has built with our, you know, with city and with county, that it feels like there's a lot of trust there, and we have the capacity to support that employee and to, you know, manage that fiscal responsibility. The vision long-term would be for this entity, Missoula Child Care Advantage, to spin off into its own nonprofit. But because this is a pilot, we'd want to make sure that that was a solid organization with the ability to handle that kind of
So you
trust.
guys.
So we would
you can
incubate it.
Yeah, incubate
Perfect.
is the right word, yeah.
Great.
Yep.
Great.
And I will say too, the innovation grant that we are in the process of applying for with the state is a significant grant and the very short timeline.
Does that help with some of the physical?
Yes, so the requirement for that innovation grant is that new childcare spots are actually created, which is why we are focusing on the renovation of Cold Springs to be childcare ready for the participating providers in this. So it's kind of this dual win if we are funded for the innovation grant, because we are creating new childcare slots and a sustaining structure that will support existing childcare in our community long-term differently. So we're kind of doing two pieces at once if we're funded for that. If for some reason we are not funded for the innovation grant at Cold Springs, we intend to move forward with this membership model and look for the right place for the pilot to be established. The partnerships that have come together around this innovation are partnerships that are going to continue to be enthusiastic about this idea. And I think it's something that has a lot of promise, whether the pilot is at Cold Springs or in a different kind of facility.
So as far as the new slots, how is that being calculated? Because I'm assuming it would be existing childcare providers who would be a part of this facility. Are they expanding what they're able to offer? Is that the deal?
These are such great
yeah,
questions.
yeah.
Yeah, we would require and there will be, once we get to that point, assuming that we are funded to move forward in that way, the plan would involve significant outreach and involvement and conversation with childcare providers and with the childcare provider community. Childcare Resources has been very enthusiastic about helping with that outreach. And Kelly Rosenleaf from Childcare Resources would be interested in helping be on the leadership team for this project should we get funded, to make sure that we're doing that outreach in the right way. We would be selecting providers based on a variety of criteria, including, you know, indicators of quality, willingness to adhere to some of the sort of, like, you have to do this if you're going to be in this project, you know, pay your staff this way and so on. And we would insist that providers are expanding. If they're moving into the building, we don't want to close 6 spots over here to simply open 6 slots over there. There's no net win in that. Yeah, so they would have to be expanding. They're either opening second location or expanding their offerings.
So when would you want this person to start?
So this person we are estimating would be starting around January 1st of 2024. The grant,
24.
yes. Mhm.
Oh,
A year and a half, say. The grant period these are ARPA dollars. And so the grant period would go through September of 24. We are proposing that the innovation grant would fund project management during that startup period of time. It's really a grant that's about startup. And so project management during that time would work out the legal and procedural and operational details of this project. The position that we are hoping to fund is not so much about startup, but operation.
Okay.
Once we are,
Sustainability and
So those are different people.
they would probably be different people, slightly different skill sets, probably different pay range. But we're looking for this position that we are thinking is a similar position in some ways to the kinds of folks who've come into really complex systems work around things like mental health or the housing crisis, suicide prevention, those kinds of roles that require sort of complex work and have been identified as pressing challenges by the nonprofit community, by the city, by the county. And there are in some of those instances, co-funding of that role.
I'm sorry. Just what we've learned and from the city and the county is we all know that childcare is a pressing community issue and that it's a crisis right up there with housing. But as yet, it's no one's particular portfolio. And just as you folks have made a commitment to housing and homelessness, including through staffing, that's what we envision this as. There would be a point person on childcare on an ongoing basis. And the reason we're coming to you now for something in the future, which I know how fast time flies. I have a birthday tomorrow, did I mention? Time flies, is wanting to build it into the grant as evidence of sustainability, which is a key criteria.
So what in terms of evidence to build into the grant would you need? Because it sounds like
commitment.
Well, and the kicker here is that we cannot commit ourselves in out years from a budget standpoint. So since we're talking about not this coming fiscal year, but the following fiscal year, is what could we do that would evidence commitment without actually
Sending over the money,
finding
right?
dollars.
no, yeah, we can't buy the hands of a future commission.
Yeah, right, sure. So our hope would be that when we submit the grant proposal by June 10th, this is really fast turnaround. The grant came out about 2.5 weeks ago. We got the RFP, so we're moving as quickly as we can here. But when the grant goes in, that any financial commitment that the county could make between now and then as match to support this effort could be committed to, but that a letter of intent that says we support this vision, we support this model, we will continue to look toward a co-funded position in the future. Any language that feels like as strong of support as this commission could make to the future, recognizing that that's, with a 1.5 years lead time, there are constraints.
I think we could do it if it was this budget season. We could put a number to it.
What do you mean put a number to it?
We could say we would contribute this much, but
I don't think so. I mean, we talked to Chris.
It would be a budget request.
it would be a
Part of the
budget. It would be,
Regular budget
it
request,
would be
like,
built into the budget process.
but that would be for
But that would be for
next year.
FY24.
Right, which
Right.
is a long ways off.
So I think what Grace is suggesting is really doable, and that is offering a demonstration of support for the model and for the collaboration. And I mean, we could find some
Letter of
language.
intent and some
Great. And do we need to have
Not-
money attached to that, or is just the letter?
Well, that's
I think some guidance is in the job description about what we'd be looking for, and in previous correspondence about commensurate, a staff position commensurate with other similar project, project directors or however you worded that like we would want it to be.
Sure.
But that's all
that we
the
can
language, but
evaluate.
actually releasing money
Right.
Because we don't make that decision until
It's two
September of
budget-
23.
Two budget
22.
cycles away.
23.
23.
Yeah.
What year are we? We're
22.
Yeah, but okay, September 22, though, we're going to be making, this is the budget for fiscal year 23.
24.
23.
We're in, this year we'll be talking
Yeah.
23,
Thank you.
but the money is for fiscal year 24.
Right. But no,
If
say
it
say that again.
starts January of 24, is that still in technically fiscal year 23 though?
23, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's fiscal year 24.
Oh,
24.
Oh, Andrew,
Fiscal year.
Andrew his arm up there. Yeah.
Yes. January. It is fiscal year 24, so,
Okay.
Thank you.
We're about to start the budget.
and next year's fiscal year 23. And yet, I think, a budget amendment or going through the budget process with the budget request would be appropriate in doing something like that. Just to, if you want to commit in this current year. I don't know.
We'll set the money aside in this current year and hold it for the following fiscal year.
Yeah, can we do that?
He's frozen.
Just thinking.
I've never experienced such a thing, but unless Mr. Hart thinks otherwise, I don't know.
So, okay, so can I just run this through in my head? So in September of 2022, this September,
Mhm.
say by somehow we have agreed to whatever, $80,000,
Split up.
$40,000 to be committed January 21st of 2024.
That would,
We can't do that.
can't do that.
Yeah.
I think, instead of trying to figure all of this out, like in the moment, I do think that between Andrew and Grace and we can
Mhm.
kind of tee this up
Okay.
for you to be able to provide your.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you.
and if it.
Sorry, John.
In the innovation grant that we plan to submit, we are required to have matched. And we, in not knowing how, the budget of the county works best, if the best way for us to go forward is to actually make that request for sooner and use a contribution that could be built into this year's budget as match in the project managers. And then that would roll into the coordinator position for the longer, assuming that the county continued to support it as each, commission had the chance to review that. That's absolutely possible in our model. And we want to work with what seems like urgent and necessary to the commission in terms of providing support to the project.
But are you needing financial match in order to submit
Complete
the grant?
The grant to get the CPA.
We don't have to have money in hand, but a
Oh.
letter of intent around that would be
Okay.
helpful.
Okay.
Letters of intent.
So if it's,
Right.
if a letter of intent will get it over the finish line, then we wouldn't have to revisit the actual dollar thing until next fiscal year.
Which just seems funky given the timing, not about, that doesn't reflect our desire to see this move forward, but the realities of how budget cycles work.
Right.
And the grants due when, Grace?
June 10th.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll put something together.
Yeah,
Not
I really
really
appreciate all the good questions. And
Yeah.
would you like any more copies of
So-
any of this
So
material?
for our letter of intent, we don't need to have exact numbers. Or do we?
I don't know the answer to that yet.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
ultimately, we'll have to kick it back to you all,
Helpful.
is what you would be wanting to pay said.
So we're having similar conversations with our partners in the city. And it's our understanding that there needs to be a little bit of conversation, perhaps between Chris
At
and
the
Dale,
staff level
to
is what
look at
we heard from the city.
what salaries look like for this type of position right now. Yeah, we're not 100% sure what that looks like, but we've seen a few positions advertised recently that seem similar to us that are in the $21 to $26 an hour sort of range. We've seen them advertised at that.
The most recent one being the suicide prevention coordinator for the health department is in that range.
What were you gonna say, Andrew?
You know, a letter of intent, I think Ann's right, we can craft the words so that we can get through the situation. And a letter of intent, we could, I don't know that you can intend to spend future tax dollars without, you know, approval of the budget, but you could put a letter of intent around some ARPA or other dollars that you have, you know, just to set them aside for the time being. Not saying you're going to use them, but you may be able to use that as your letter of intent funding.
I think
Okay.
we should have you guys work this out.
Yeah, we'll work it out.
Okay.
Oh, thank you.
I love
Thank
it
you
when
for
she
all the
does that.
I know.
Yeah.
Right answer.
Yeah. We're available for any of those
Yeah,
conversations.
thanks for taking the time to come over today.
Yeah.
Thank you for having
We
us.
appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Oh, oh yeah.
I was
Did we,
back.
did we stall enough for
She
Kyla?
reached the fortune.
Drove to Florence.
Drove to Florence. See you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, I was able to reach out to the board. I did get in touch with Brad Porch. He said that the person they did know from the applicants was Shauna Dishman Hoffbauer, and he would be in support of that applicant. They just don't have any information or any community information on Pat Keenan.
Move, we appoint Shauna to the board. Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
And for the other applicant, Kyla, since we're still contemplating amending their bylaws to have an alternate, I wonder if we give that person a heads up that that is something potentially in the works. So.
Yes, I can
I
I
think
can
that's,
let the applicant know that
Yeah.
there could be potential future openings to this board.
Hopefully there should be, right?
yeah.
There should be. They agreed
Because-
to it when we were.
Yeah, we're gonna modernize them and then there will be an alternate.
Once the bylaws are approved and they approve that alternate, correct?
Okay, thank you so much for
Yeah,
doing
thanks
that.
for doing that on the fly.
Thank you.
Of course, thank you.
Events, invitations.
Going to Seattle on Saturday for a federally qualified health.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that's really cool.
Exactly.
Oh, good. Maybe we can task Dave with all sorts of things to do while he's in Seattle.
What else could we do?
My place, Mike. Let me know.
Great.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks all.
Goodbye.